Before we begin, a serious warning. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. What you're about to hear isn't gossip. It's not hearsay. It's the sworn federal courtroom testimony from the ongoing trial involving Sean Diddy Combs, as originally reported by Inner City Press. And in a move no one expected, the queen of controversy herself, Wendy Williams, took the stand. Yes, Wendy. The same Wendy the industry tried to silence for decades. Now she's finally speaking under oath, not on a stage, not behind a mic, in front of a judge, jury, and an entire system that tried to bury her voice. But Wendy didn't just testify about Diddy. She painted a picture of an entire network of silence, secrecy, and systemic abuse stretching across hip-hop and Hollywood. Jay-Z, R. Kelly, NDAs, hidden threats. She came ready, with dates, with receipts, and with a voice that couldn't be ignored. This wasn't a hot topic segment. This was a reckoning. What she said could shatter the foundations of an entire industry. When Wendy walked into that courtroom, it didn't feel like a celebrity cameo. It felt like a resurrection, like someone who had clawed her way out of being buried alive just to finally be heard. She wasn't chasing headlines. She wasn't seeking pity. She was fulfilling a purpose. She stared the jury down, adjusted her mic slowly, and said, "I was never messy. I was never bitter. I wasn't lying. I was early." That set the tone. She wasted no time, diving straight into the patterns of abuse, the veiled threats, the backroom deals, everything she had been hinting at for years about Diddy. She laid out a stack of documents, transcripts, emails, timelines, detailing how she was systematically silenced whenever she spoke his name. It started in the early 2000s. According to Wendy, you couldn't even mention Puff without your phone ringing an hour later. She described how radio station managers warned her, how sponsors pulled out, and how the threats came, never directly, but always clearly. "You're doing too much, Wendy. You're gonna get hurt." She recalled the time she was chased out of her building by a girl group, allegedly sent by Diddy himself, just hours after she called them out as broke on her show. That wasn't coincidence, she said. That was coordination. Wendy described her career as a war zone. Every time she exposed something about Diddy, she lost something. A sponsor, a network deal, a syndication contract. But she stood firm. "You can blackball me. You can threaten me. But you can't erase me. And now I'm under oath." She stared down the courtroom and made it clear. She wasn't leaving anything unsaid. When asked about the culture surrounding Diddy, she didn't hesitate. She turned the spotlight towards someone else she'd warned the public about for years. Jay-Z. Her voice tightened. You can't talk about Diddy without talking about the ones who stood by him, who smiled with him, who let it all happen. Then, she dropped the name Foxy Brown. Wendy reminded the court that Foxy was just 15 when she entered the spotlight, while Jay-Z, 27 at the time, was right there with her. She pulled out Foxy's debut lyrics, reportedly penned by Jay, and read them aloud to a stunned courtroom. "You tell me, why was a grown man writing those lyrics for a teenage girl?" And just like that, the courtroom froze. Wendy didn't just toss accusations. She laid out industry details that only an insider could know. She spoke of Jay-Z picking Foxy Brown up from high school, showering her with extravagant gifts, taking her on shopping sprees, and funding salon visits. Acts that Wendy argued weren't signs of mentorship, but of grooming. Then she dropped an even darker bombshell, the long-rumored tape. She said whispers about a video involving Jay-Z, Foxy Brown, and Jamie Foxx had floated through the industry for years. Then, suddenly, Foxy's home was burglarized. The alleged tape? Gone. The implication was chilling. Coincidence? Wendy asked, pausing long enough to let it sting. I don't think so. Wendy told the court that shortly after she publicly, questioned Jay-Z's relationships with underage girls. She was abruptly fired from her top-rated radio show. Her words weren't seen as bravery, they were branded as toxicity. "They didn't silence me because I was messy," she said. "They silenced me because I was right." When asked if she had any real evidence, Wendy didn't flinch. She confirmed she had email chains, call logs, and names of producers who mysteriously dropped out after she mentioned Jay-Z on air. According to her, Jay's team made quiet but powerful moves, calls to executives, networks, and brands, urging them to blacklist her. "They turned me into a villain just for asking what any decent human being should have asked." She stared at the jury and didn't blink. "You think I lost sponsors because I was controversial? No, I lost sponsors because I spoke the truth, and the truth scared them." Then she said something that changed the courtroom's temperature. "I was the first to say it. Those weren't parties. They were operations." She was referring to the infamous freak-offs, a term now central to the federal indictment against Diddy. Wendy testified that these weren't just wild nights. They were orchestrated events. She said she first heard about them in the late 90s when Bad Boy Records was at its peak. Phones were confiscated at the door, NDAs were signed, guests were escorted by candlelight, rooms were assigned, cameras watched, nothing was casual. "This wasn't a party," she said, "it was a ritual." She referenced an explosive interview she once aired with Karen Superhead Steffens, who claimed that Diddy not only invited her to one of these events, but asked for male participation. Superhead described the drugs, the paranoia, the setups. She said Diddy was scared of her speaking out. Wendy ensured the world heard that interview again and again, because it wasn't entertainment. It was truth. She went on to reveal how multiple guests, both men and women, had reached out to her after attending Diddy's so-called parties. What they described wasn't debauchery. It was trauma. These weren't guests, they were pawns. They were told what to wear, who to touch, where to go. Wendy said that 3 individuals even mentioned IV bags being used afterward to recover from whatever they were given. Some recalled seeing medical professionals on site, an eerie confirmation of the federal case's claims. This wasn't about socializing. This was something far more sinister, something organized. She handed the court a document filled with pseudonyms, coded identities of the people who had shared their stories in private. The names matched the same patterns later revealed by Cassie Ventura, Gene Deal, and other whistleblowers in the case. Then came the moment that hit like a sledgehammer. The baby oil. She said it years ago, on air, as a punchline. People laughed, but she wasn't joking. They really found it, she told the courtroom. Over 1,000 bottles. Just like I said, you want to know how I knew? Because people told me. And I was the only one who said it. And with that, Wendy leaned back in her chair, calm and unwavering. Her eyes found Diddy's. All these years later, and now it's not gossip, it's evidence. As the courtroom fell silent, Wendy turned her focus to someone she'd always defended, Cassie Ventura. With unwavering conviction, she told the jury, "I said it back then, and I'll say it again now. She was never safe." Explained how, beneath the red carpets, luxury jets, and glittering music videos, she saw the signs. Wendy said Cassie wasn't living a fairy tale, she was surviving a nightmare. While the world saw glamour, Wendy saw control. Cassie wasn't Diddy's girlfriend. She was his prisoner, wrapped in designer. Wendy testified that as early as 2008, she tried warning her audience about Diddy's obsessive grip on the young singer. Cassie was just 19. Diddy was nearly 40. Wendy didn't mince words. That's not love, that's leverage. She described how Diddy's influence, his money, his security, his industry power, made it virtually impossible for Cassie to leave. He wasn't just her partner, he was her gatekeeper. She didn't need a boyfriend, Wendy told the jury. She needed a bodyguard. She recalled a specific interview she aired years ago, one where Cassie looked down and visibly flinched when Diddy raised his voice. The public brushed it off as nerves. Wendy saw something deeper. "That wasn't anxiety," she said. "That was trauma." The prosecution then presented a timeline of Wendy's radio segments that eerily matched up with Cassie's future legal claims. Every red flag Wendy had spoken about was now being echoed in official testimony. She recounted receiving tips about Diddy accessing Cassie's phone, showing up at her hotel rooms without warning, even using hotel staff to unlock doors. And the moment Wendy spoke about it on air, "My sponsors pulled the plug," she said. She referenced a 2018 incident, the alleged breaking point where Cassie finally ended the relationship after Diddy forced his way into her home. But Wendy was clear. "That wasn't the first time," she said. "That was just the first time people cared." She explained how the power dynamic worked, how men like Diddy, at the top of the food chain, could bend the world to their will. They didn't need to ask permission. They created the rules. "When a mogul wants control," Wendy said, "they don't knock, they walk in." She broke down the methodical structure. Isolate the woman, elevate her, then control every inch of her environment, from her friends to her career to her body. Luxury became the leash. He didn't just love Cassie, he owned her, Wendy declared. And when she broke free, she became dangerous. She paused for a moment, then continued. "Everything in that lawsuit, I saw it happening in real time. I said it publicly. But no one listened." Her voice slowed but didn't shake. "You don't talk about men like Diddy and walk away clean." "I knew that. I just didn't know how deep it would go." She then revealed something that left the room stunned. Back in 2004, at the height of her radio fame, Wendy got a message. A record label executive told her point blank, "Stop talking about Puff, or else." She ignored it. A week later, her time slot was gone. "They didn't even try to hide it," Wendy said. "That was punishment." She testified that she later heard from multiple sources that Diddy had been making calls, quiet, strategic ones. He spoke to label heads, promoters, and radio networks, warning them to distance themselves from her. One program director even told her, "You poked the wrong bear." Wendy recalled a terrifying day when she was nearly attacked outside her own studio by the girl group Total, the same group she had once called out on air. Her boyfriend waited in the car. Her intern panicked. Fans pressed up against the glass. That wasn't random. That was a warning. From there, the silencing only escalated. She was disinvited from BET events, denied media passes, advertising deals vanished, and one by one, PR firms began cutting ties, citing client instruction. Wendy pulled out a printed email. "We will no longer be booking talent on Wendy Williams' show." "That client?" she said, holding up the paper. "Sean Combs." Wendy didn't hold back. "I wasn't the first they blackballed," she said. "But I was one of the few who stayed loud." She turned toward the jury once more, her gaze locked in. "That's how he operates. If you speak out, you lose everything. Your mic, your money, your name." But Wendy, she didn't fold. She spoke louder. She shared a moment that felt almost surreal in retrospect. She quoted her own words from years ago. "We come from a very homosexual era of hip-hop." It wasn't meant to be shade. It was meant to shine light. But for saying it, she was crucified. Wendy explained how, in the early 2000s, the industry had a quiet code. Don't question certain people. Don't name names. Don't poke the illusion. And definitely don't out the powerful. "I had Charlemagne sitting next to me," she said. "Even we knew what not to say if we wanted to stay employed. But I said it anyway." She talked about her 2004 memoir, The Wendy Williams Experience, a book filled with coded references and cryptic warnings about Diddy, Jay-Z, and others. It was dismissed back then as messy gossip. But now, she said. Now it's being used as evidence. She described a 2009 interview she did with Mark Curry, a former bad boy artist who wrote Dancing with the Devil. He called Diddy the shadow that ruins people. Wendy agreed with him live on air, and then that interview disappeared from the station archives, vanished. She testified that every time she tried to give a platform to voices like Superhead, Gene Deal, or Jaguar Wright, people who dared speak against the industry, she was met with resistance, emails, threats, even FCC complaints. They came at me from every angle, she said, trying to shut me down. Then she said something that made the jury lean in. There was a list, not one on paper, not official, but everyone in the industry knew it existed. A mental blacklist of people you weren't allowed to question. And when Wendy broke that rule, she paid. She explained how her Hot Topic segments were constantly flagged for review. Producers got warned. Talent reps threatened to pull guests. Executives quietly urged her to back off. They told me I was going to ruin everything, she said, for the station, for myself. She paused for a breath, then added, "But it's already ruined now, isn't it? Because the truth is out." Wendy's voice dropped lower, but not softer. "This trial isn't the beginning," she said. "It's the end of a cover-up I've been screaming about for 20 years. She shifted again, sharper now, focused. "You think this is just about Diddy?" she asked, staring at the jury. "You're wrong. This is about the ecosystem that protected him." Then she spoke names no one expected to hear in a courtroom. Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey. A hush fell over the room. The prosecution asked her to elaborate. And Wendy did, with brutal clarity. "There's a list in Hollywood, not one you can touch, not one you'll ever see, but it's real. A list of people you don't cross. If you do, you vanish." She recalled the fallout from her now infamous radio segments. How she didn't just name Diddy, she named the machine. And that machine included Tyler Perry. "I had real sources," she said. "Producers, agents, people inside. They told her straight. Her name was being passed around. She was labeled unstable, radioactive." Then came the precious fallout. Both Perry and Oprah were heavily involved with the film. After Wendy criticized them publicly, her industry access collapsed. Invitations vanished. Her name was scrubbed off guest lists. One exec even told me, "Oprah's people don't want you near her anymore." That's power. Then Wendy dropped a story that chilled the room. She revealed that she had once confided in Oprah, privately, about her own history of abuse. Oprah had responded with grace, or so Wendy thought at the time. She told me she respected me, that she'd never exploit that part of my story. But soon after, something happened that Wendy couldn't ignore. Her abuser, the one she spoke about, appeared on Oprah's show. Meanwhile, Wendy herself was being iced out of the very industry she'd helped shape. "That wasn't coincidence," she said, her voice tightening. "That was retaliation." She looked the jury in the eyes and spoke plainly. "They took selfies with him. They stood beside Diddy. While people like me, we got crushed for speaking out." Wendy said it wasn't just friendship, it was strategic silence. A calculated effort to protect deals, partnerships, and the image of power players. People needed Diddy, for his reach, for his money, for his silence. Then she produced an email. It had been forwarded to her by mistake. A slip-up from a PR firm that worked for both Tyler Perry's studio and a brand affiliated with Bad Boy. The subject line? Managing Optics. Wendy, Puff, Tyler. That's all it said. But for Wendy, it said everything. They weren't acting alone. They were a machine. One built to destroy anyone who dared pull the curtain back. The courtroom grew tense. Every word hitting harder than the last. Then came the moment prosecutors would later describe as a turning point. Wendy pulled out a thick folder. She held it in both hands, slapped it lightly on the table. "This," she said, "is what they never wanted the world to see." Inside, a trove of NDA threads, internal memos, confidential communications, all legally obtained, she emphasized, through former insiders who'd finally had enough. These were people who walked away from the industry, people who were tired of watching women vanish, of seeing truth called gossip. Wendy began reading aloud, an NDA dated 2007, names redacted. Subject agrees not to disclose any private gatherings, recordings, or interactions with Mr. Sean Combs, his guests, or associates. Violation of this agreement may result in financial penalties and public retaliation. She looked up from the page. Public retaliation, that's how deep it goes. She kept going, reading from an email sent by a luxury hotel chain. It confirmed preparation of a presidential suite with extra linens, candlelight atmosphere, and privacy measures. The assistant to Sean Combs was listed as the contact for setup. The date on the email, 2015. Cassie was still with him, Wendy said. So don't tell me this was just partying. This was orchestrated, funded, cleaned up. She held up receipts, literal payments, made to publicists, talent managers, even bloggers. All to bury rumors and rewrite narratives. One email told a journalist to ignore recent allegations and focus instead on Diddy's philanthropy. Then came the photo. Prosecutors displayed it for the jury. Diddy, Tyler Perry, a media fixer known for cleaning up celebrity scandals. All three standing together, smiling at a 2019 gala. Smiling, Wendy said, while women were being paid to stay quiet and others were destroyed for refusing to sign. She testified that she too was offered an NDA, along with a golden opportunity. A syndicated TV deal, national platform, big money. All she had to do? Drop the stories, let it go, move on. She said no, and I paid the price. The courtroom sat frozen. Wendy didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just delivered truth after truth. Calm, measured, undeniable. The silence they bought cost people their freedom, their peace, their voices. But now, it's all unraveling, one NDA at a time. As Wendy Williams reached the final stretch of her testimony, she didn't break down. She didn't waver. She simply sat there, still, composed, with the weight of 2 decades of warnings finally being validated in a courtroom. "You see Diddy on trial," she said, "but I see something far bigger." Her voice was firm, steady. "This isn't just about what he did. It's about who let him do it." She turned toward the defense table. "You see one man, but behind him is an entire machine. A tower, built on silence, on NDAs, on billion-dollar handshakes and party invitations." Then she looked straight at the jury, and every time someone tried to speak up, that tower crushed them. Wendy reminded the court that while Diddy was the one being charged, others stood by and watched it all unfold. Jay-Z, Tyler Perry, Oprah, record labels, publicists, handlers, all complicit in their silence, some even first-hand witnesses. They took his money, took his meetings, took his photo ops, and made sure the people who asked hard questions were pushed out. Then came her final words, and they carried the same energy that made her legendary on the airwaves. "They called me bitter. They called me crazy. But I was right." She paused, then added, "And if being right means walking through hell, I'll take that over being silent in heaven." She glanced once more at Diddy, who sat motionless throughout. "You thought I was gone. You thought your power was enough to bury me. But here we are, and the truth finally caught up to you." She stood, looked toward the gallery one last time. "This trial isn't the end. It's just the beginning. the beginning of people finally naming names, of the cracks forming. And one day, that whole tower's gonna fall. And with that, she walked out. If you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to Fame Exposed for more shocking celebrity stories. Fair use disclaimer. All footage used in this video is for educational and commentary purposes only. We do not own any of the footage. Full credit goes to the respective owners.